Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Gaura Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 28, verse 42. Sarvabhuteshu chatmanam.
Sarvabhuteshu chatmanam.
Sarvabhutani chatmani.
Sarvabhutani chatmani.
Ikshetananya bhavena.
Ikshetananya bhavena.
Bhuteshviva tadatmatam.
Bhuteshiva tadatmanam.
Sarvabhuteshu chatmanam.
Sarvabhuteshu chatmanam.
Sarvabhutani chatmani.
Sarvabhutani chatmani.
Ikshetananya bhavena.
Ikshetananya bhavena.
Bhuteshviva tadatmatam.
Bhuteshiva tadatmatam. Sarvabhuteshu chatmanam.
Sarvabhuteshu chatmanam.
Sarvabhutani chatmani.
Sarvabhutani chatmani.
Ikshetananya bhavena.
Ikshetananya bhavena.
Bhuteshiva tadatmatam.
Bhuteshviva tadatmatam. Sarvabhuteshu chatmanam. Sarvabhutani chatmani. Ikshetananya bhavena. Bhuteshviva tadatmatam. Sarvabhuteshu,
Sarvabhuteshu,
in all manifestations,
in all manifestations,
cha,
cha,
and
and
atmanam,
atmana,
the soul,
the soul,
Sarvabhutani,
Sarvabhutani,
all manifestations,
all manifestations,
cha,
cha,
also, atmani,
atmani,
in the Supreme Spirit,
in the Supreme Spirit,
iksheta,
ikshita,
he should see, ananya bhavena,
ananya bhavena,
with equal vision,
with equal vision,
bhuteshu,
bhuteshu,
in all manifestations,
in all manifestations,
eva,
eva,
as,
as,
tat atmatam,
tat atmatam,
the nature of itself.
the nature of itself.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. A yogi should see the same soul in all manifestations, for all that exists is a manifestation of different energies of the Supreme. In this way, the devotee should see all living entities without distinction. That is realization of the Supreme Soul. I'll just read that again. A yogi should see the same soul in all manifestations, for all that exists is a manifestation of different energies of the Supreme. In this way, the devotee should see all living entities without distinction. That is realization of the Supreme Soul. Purport. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, not only does the Supreme Soul enter each and every universe, but he enters even the atoms. The Supreme Soul is present everywhere in the dormant stage, and when one can see the presence of the Supreme Soul everywhere, one is liberated from material designations. The word Sarvabhuteshu is to be understood as follows. There are 4 different divisions of species: living entities which sprout from the earth, living entities born of fermentation or germination, living entities which come from eggs, and living entities which come from the embryo. These 4 divisions of living entities are expanded in 8,400,000 species of life. A person who is freed from material designations can see the same quality of spirit present everywhere, or in every manifested living entity. Less intelligent men think that plants and grass grow out of the earth automatically, but one who is actually intelligent and has realized for self can see that this growth is not automatic. The cause is the soul, and the forms come out in material bodies under different conditions. By fermentation in the laboratory, many germs are born, but this is due to the presence of the soul. The material scientist thinks that eggs are lifeless, but that is not a fact. From Vedic scripture we can understand that living entities in different forms are generated under different conditions. Birds evolve from eggs, and beasts and human beings are born from the embryo. The perfect vision of the yogi or devotee is that he sees the presence of the living entity everywhere. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual masters kindly opened my eyes with this torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him, and to Srimad Bhagavatam. So here is the science of self-realization, or here this chapter is about the science of self-realization, and it's the Sankhya aspect which is also covered in the Bhagavad Gita. And then, I'm just about to end this chapter, and the next chapter is about bhakti. So, it is explained in the Bhagavad Gita that to understand the Sankhya Yoga and to apply oneself to it is non-different from the practice of devotional service. It's the dovetailing or the utilizing one's intelligence or intelligent faculty and understanding what exactly is the soul, what exactly is the living entity within the body, and the difference between the body and the soul. And firstly, when Srila Prabhupada was giving advice to the devotees when they were starting the Gurukul, he asked them to teach 5 things to teach 5 things as the main aspect of a Gurukul curriculum, and they're also defined in the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita. But when he was writing this letter, he said there are 5 things that you need to teach the children. So the first thing is, who is Krishna? That's the first one. Who is Krishna? Then, who are we? Who is the living entity? The third one is, what is the material world exactly? The fourth one is, what is the relationship between the living entities and Krishna? And the fifth one is, how does one behave or act within that relationship? So that is quite a specific and streamlined curriculum in relation to Krishna consciousness, or in relation to Srila Prabhupada's teachings. And everything else would come second after that. So, also, Bhaktivinoda Thakur defines it also scientifically, but with the Sambandha, Abhidaya and Prayojana concepts. So the Sambandha concept of the soul of knowledge is who are we? That the soul is a part and parcel of Krishna, who is Krishna. And then the Abhidaya aspect is, how do we act with that knowledge in relationship to Krishna? What is the process that we perform? And then the third one was Prayojana, which is the result of this knowledge and the practice. So the priyojana is basically the manifestation of love for Krishna and the soul becoming realized within that relationship, realizing themselves. So that is just the structure of this knowledge, and within it, it is like an ocean, with a bottomless ocean. It's so deep. And obviously, who is Krishna is unlimited, because Krishna himself is unlimited. And Prabhupada, the Srimad Bhagavatam is purely about Krishna. And the Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Krishna. So we can understand when we read the Bhagavad Gita that this knowledge is basically what Krishna wants us to know in this material world. It's the ABCs, but it's coming from the Lord. So it's like the blueprint of everything that's going on and everything that we really need to know, no more and no less. So the soul, and the soul is an eternal fragment, a part and parcel of Krishna. It's like a spark, like we're reading. It's like the spark from the fire. And the fire and the spark are non-different in constitution. Like that little spark can, create, can become a big fire. So we can understand that the spark is non-different from the fire. But the analogy actually is that the spark in of itself is very, very small in relationship to the fire. So although we are constitutionally the same from the Lord, the same as the Lord, we are very small, and our relationship with the Lord is one of service to the Lord. So this is the essence of the Maha Mantra. When we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we are connecting with the Lord in the mood of service to Krishna. And this relationship is also unlimited, simply because Krishna is unlimited. So if we reconnect with Krishna in service, then we can understand that our existence becomes, eternal, and it's a forever and increasing relationship. So the point Prabhupada is making here is that Krishna is within not only every universe but also within all the atoms. So the Supreme Soul, Krishna as Super Soul, is present within all the living entities, and that the process of Krishna consciousness and self-realization is to gradually see the presence of the Lord everywhere. And that it's explained here that one who can see the presence of the Supreme Soul everywhere is liberated from material designations. So we can understand that, first of all, we are bound up by this identity and by identifying with the form of the Lord, with all our designations. So when we think that we are this form and everything in relation to it, whether it's a nation or a gender or a class, that is the symptom of our captivity. Whereas when we can understand that the soul, that actually the super soul resides within us and resides within all living entities, and to see that soul everywhere, that is how we become liberated from those misconceptions. That is the process of becoming liberated from thinking that I am a Kiwi, or thinking that I am a woman, or thinking that I am, have a certain type of intelligence or a certain type of capacity, and that's how that binds us. And so that is actually binding, because it draws us away from this unlimited relationship that we have with Krishna in service. It pulls us away from all of that. And so so we have to see the Lord everywhere, and we can see how practical that is. So the verse from the Bhagavad Gita, Vityavanaya Sampane Brahmane Gavihastini Suni Chaiva Svapake Cha Pandita Samadashanaha. The self-realized soul sees, or that the humble sage with that knowledge sees equally, the cow, the elephant, the Brahman, the dog eater. They see, that's the definition of a self-realized person, is that they have this vision that each one of them is the same. So, whereas we, in the bound-up state, in the conditioned state, we act and we respond to our vision of discrimination, and we see that this person is low class, or this person is at a certain type of quality, or that living entity is disgusting, or this living entity is elevated, and we respond to that judgment, and then we act like that. And that's how we get bound up. That's how we get into, conflicts with others, and how how we displease the Lord, because it's impossible to respect with that type of discrimination. It's actually impossible to show equal respect. We have an experience in this world. We know what it's like to be disrespected. We all can feel that, but we don't know what it's like. We actually don't have that knowledge of how to respect. When we read the translations of these verses, of the bhajans of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, please give me the power to properly respect other living entities. Well, first of all, we don't realise that we need power to respect others. And so this is just waking up our eyes, but we certainly feel, we certainly feel being disrespected. So we need to turn the tables and start to actually tolerate being disrespected, because that's actually very natural for a conditioned soul. And if we were thinking honestly that I shouldn't be disrespected, well, we're in the wrong place, because the only place where we won't be disrespected is the spiritual world. And that's because they see everybody equally there naturally, and they also see everyone in relationship to Krishna, and they honour that relationship, and they support it and nourish each other's loving spiritual relationship and service to the Lord because of their love for Krishna. So we can't expect to be respected in this world, because everyone is very much bound up by a condition that has gone back for many lifetimes, and it's very natural for the conditioned soul to see each other on the bodily concept of life, and it's layers upon layers of offence and being disrespected. And so we can't even see the beginning of it, how the anger and how the hurt began, and how it all, that's part of the whole bondage of this material world. So we must forgive, and we must actually really learn to tolerate being disrespected based on the body. But we mustn't tolerate our own discriminative propensity. And how do we do that? We have to become very practical in this process of devotional service and seeing everyone equally. And it says here in the last line, the perfect vision of the yogi or devotee is that he sees the presence of the living entity everywhere. So that seeing is actually a feeling. It's actually acknowledging the living entities within our realm of experience. And so what really helps to develop this type of vision is kirtan, and kirtan with the devotees in all sorts of different circumstances, whether it's Harinam or in someone's home or in the temple. And when we're chanting Hare Krishna together, we're thinking, and we become aware of the others who are responding. I'm responding to the leader is aware of those who are responding to him. And we become conscious of each other's existence, and we're glorifying the Lord. So this is a fantastic practice for us to start to actually see very equally, and it becomes very practical that we see the presence of the other living entities within the kirtan. We feel their presence and we acknowledge them, and this is actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction. Trinadapi Sunichena, Tarorapi Sahishnuna, Amanena Manadena, Kirtaniya Siddhaharihi. That one should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, and devoid of all sense of false prestige, And in this way one can offer respect to all others and chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. So offering respect can simply be, and we certainly have felt being ignored, we've felt being slighted or just not acknowledged. But so therefore we try and understand the power of what it means to simply be aware of another person in our presence. And that awareness is felt by the others, and also it gives us a lovely platform to actually be able to learn how to respect each other. If I'm just conscious of you and aware that you are there and that the Lord is within your heart, then that's a great starting point. All I have to do is just be conscious of that and acknowledge that within myself. Acknowledge that these people are here, that this person is here, that this living entity is here. Prabhupada was reading this morning that Srila Prabhupada said that even if there's a snake in your house, you should ensure that they are fed. So all living entities must be acknowledged and respected as, but it's very hard for us to even know how to do that, so we can start by just being aware of them. So it's just being kind of a little, just acknowledging, and this is a practice where we can just acknowledge that everybody's here and that we are all part and parcel of Krishna. And in that way, we can start to have this practice of learning how to respect one another. Because another thing is that Bhakti Chari Maharaj, which has been hearing more intensely from him, and I was hearing this recently, that he said that this path is the path of humility. And then just also hearing about how because some people are actually so conditioned and so offensive that they would see a fault in a saintly person and also draw it out. And we can understand that a lot of these souls, these great personalities, are actually they're humiliated and by the conditioned souls, and this is great offence and very unfortunate for those who do that. But the great souls, they simply see that as a service, as part of their service to the Lord. They tolerate and bear this kind of humiliation, and in that way they just become more qualified to receive the Lord's mercy, and the Lord's mercy comes to them in such intense ways that we can we can only be witnesses to that. We also might witness how they are blasphemed in this world, and it's very dangerous because we understand that to witness the blasphemy of a great soul is extremely dangerous for our spiritual life. And this is why in the Nectar of Instructions it is said that we can express anger in relation to that, because that not only is our duty, but it protects us from the wickedness of that in the mind, that comes into the mind, and that Hanuman represents that. Hanuman was an example of that. His anger towards Ravana, because of the offence that he performed against Lord Ramachandra, and the anger that Krishna had to invoke within Arjuna, or that Arjuna had to find within himself, due to the fact that actually their cousins, the Duryodhana and all of those, had performed such dreadful offences against Yudhisthira, who was, pure devotee of the Lord. So the Lord doesn't tolerate it, and neither is the devotee meant to tolerate it. So, however, the actual, not meant to tolerate blasphemy of another devotee, but the actual devotee themselves is, we can understand, we've got so many examples, like Jesus Christ or Haridas Thakur. They all just and many of the great saints that we hear about in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, they tolerate the injustices against them. They don't retaliate like a conditioned soul, and that is how they become who they are, and that is why they are who they are. And so we can simply meditate on the beauty of that, of the soul, of the self-realized soul, and the beauty of the pure devotee. And even Bhakti Charu Maharaj, he's so humble and so very sweet, and it's so very painful to hear of what they may have had to bear in their life. And you can, we can access it so easily on the internet. That the whole social media thing. Suddenly it's in front of you, some dreadful thing that's said about these people, these personalities. And then you get a very strong realization that this is a dreadful place. Dreadful because not only have these people had to bear it, but those themselves are actually about to experience the wrath of Krishna, which, what happened the other day? I have a little child in my class called Aryan, and he is just so completely non-offensive and very, very sweet and a little bit chubby, and very, very sweet soul. I've been teaching him now since the beginning of the year, and I've never witnessed him do an unkind thing to any other child, and he's very, very sweet. So he was being bullied the other day, and he was even on stage doing a drama for the pleasure of the school. And someone was in the audience was saying something really horrible about his weight, and I just felt so upset. And I was very, very upset because I'd gotten attached to this little boy. And I just thought, wow, Krishna must get very, very upset when the devotee is blasphemed. And I was so angry with that person, and so I felt that Krishna would get very angry with the conditioned soul who has the audacity to blaspheme a pure devotee. So it is a dangerous thing, and it's unfortunate actually, because those people are destined. Because we look outside, and like what Prabhupada is saying here, less intelligent men think that plants and grass grow out of the earth automatically, but one who is actually intelligent and has realized the self can see that this growth is not automatic. The cause is the soul. So what did the soul do? And what does the soul do to take birth as a tree or a plant? It's not an auspicious birth because, well, it's, if you're a flowering plant, it might be auspicious in different ways. But generally speaking, we can understand that the plant life and many of the lives, the aquatics, to be born in the sea, in the ocean, deep, it's deep and dark, and it's just one aquatic is eating another one, and it's a very hellish existence. So what does the soul have to do to take birth in these types of forms? In the insect life, the insect life is just, it's horrendous. It's like a horror movie, isn't it? It's real. So but it must have been pretty offensive. It must have been pretty offensive to have taken birth in these forms, and you can see in the human form of life, you can understand like a lot of the things that we do that shake other people's faith in God, in ignorance that we do. It's a big mistake because we need that faith, we need that shelter. We need to have the shelter of the Lord. And so to shake other people's faith in the Lord, it's offensive, and it's all sorts of things are offensive. Eating someone is offensive. It's just so Prabhupada is saying here scientifically that all of these souls they're all of life, it all comes from the soul, and that it is a temporary situation, but the gift of Srila Prabhupada is to realise that we are a soul and that we can chant the Maha Mantra. By chanting Hare Krishna, we are saying, day after day, we're saying to Krishna, please engage me in your service, please accept me as your servant. And that, excuse me, and in that way we can develop humility, and by in developing humility and developing a realization of who we are, then we can possibly become a lot less offensive, because it's that false ego and the desire to lord it over others that gets us into trouble. So I'll stop here if anyone has any questions or comments. I'll read the verse again. A yogi should see the same soul in all manifestations, for all that exists is a manifestation of different energies of the Supreme. In this way, the devotee should see all living entities without distinction. That is realization of the Supreme Soul.
So we've got to cultivate this mentality, like you're saying. It's not easy because we understand how easy it is to criticise, because the mind is always telling us how good we are. You know, oh, you're so good at this, you're so good at that. And so it's such a subtle thing, very subtle. You know, what's going on in our minds, how we're judging and criticising. But no. You know, this is not what Krishna wants. He wants us to serve, actually. Serve the other Vaishnavas, the other devotees, even the insects, like saying, even whatever critters we have in our house, we should be providing for them. So there's a big mentality and mindset that you have to try and develop, because it's definitely not present in the age of Kali Yuga. It's the total opposite. So we've got to embrace it. And Krishna will, again, he will reciprocate with that, according to how much we're endeavouring to try to control our tongue and not speak harsh words or even think badly. You know, it's very much a yoga process that we try and develop. But as it develops, it grows into something very wonderful and sweet. You get the sweetness once you're able to give up the nasty pride, I guess. You give up the pride. And you give up the pride, you also give up the fear. Because I was thinking how Brahma and Indra, they both, I've lost my train of thought. They're fearful. They get into fearful situations. And they also get into some pretty messy ones too, where they're doing some pretty crazy stuff. You know, so we've got to learn from their lessons. They're great personalities. So we've got to just, like I said, take the low road and the Trinata B, stay low. You know, like on the battlefield, if they're throwing brahmastras or anything, you've got to lie on the ground. You know, so similarly, we've just got to stay low and get through, and not start popping our head up thinking that we are something that we're not.
Yeah. So these verses that are starting in the next chapter, some of them, they talk about devotee, you know, about serving the Lord as a separatist, and how we can be serving the Lord in the temple or anywhere with a separatist mentality, and it's not pleasing to the Lord, and it's and sometimes, you know, it's hard because you want to be focused and you want to just like do one thing, and you decide, okay, it's going to be you, Krishna. It's really, you know, that's what you want because you feel like that's where you're going to get the potency, you know. That's like, but it's actually sort of what that sort of is drawing on Krishna's potency. It's not really serving, you know. And so the devotee is not a separatist. There's another thing, like with Bhakti Charuswami, you know, he was so surrendered to Srila Prabhupada that, you know, he accepted whatever the GBC said. He would even right up to like the end of his life, like he wanted to do something in the end of his life, and the GBC suggested something else, and he accepted it. That was surrender. But why did he surrender to the GBC? Like, you know, But the reason why he surrendered to the GBC was because he loved Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada asked us to surrender and follow the governing body commission of ISKCON. And whatever they said. Why? Because because what it is that mood of cooperation is what's going to conquer this whole world and conquer, the mood of cooperating with each other, even if we like cooperating on something that's just not absolutely, by the book, so to speak, in a sense that, maybe, or rather that it's not, but just thinking about the whole thing about Bhakti Charuswami, he surrendered to the GBC, who made a decision about him and his situation, because that was his principle of how he could express his love for Srila Prabhupada. So therefore, even, but then, if you hear about all the whole situation, the GBC were actually thinking it all through too, obviously. I think this is the best thing for Maharaj because of everything that they knew, and it was also what the doctors knew as well, according to 25 years of research. They were also just thinking, this is really what we think is the best. So, at the time, and this is what's coming out now, but at the time, maybe Maharaj was not aware of all of that, because he was thinking it would be something else that would be better for him in relation to the ventilator. So, but now it says, well, the reason why the GBC decided that, and the reason why the doctors were thinking that's because that was what they thought was the best thing, But anyway, so Maharaj was just surrendering like that. And what that is for us, all we can sort of realise and gather from all of that is just how incredibly gentle and surrendered he was, beyond his own thing. And it really is incredibly inspiring to just, witness that, because actually what we all really want is love, a loving, cooperative society. And so that's the principle that Srila Prabhupada set ISKCON up, and that he really, and we can understand that following authority, the authority that Srila Prabhupada established, was Srila Prabhupada's desire, that we follow that. And like my husband, if the rain's coming this way, we put the umbrella here, and if the rain's coming this way, then we turn the umbrella this way. So that means that, whatever they say, and, some people would say, well, that's blind following, but actually it's not blind following. It's not blind following because it's what Prabhupada wanted. We've already come with our intelligence. We've looked at Srila Prabhupada's books. We've seen what Srila Prabhupada said. We've tested it out. And we've decided that Srila Prabhupada is the authority for me. That's why I joined this movement. And so we've already done that with our intelligence, and then, what we have to do, because if we were to sort of use our intelligence and stay on the intelligent platform the whole time, we will never actually become humble. We would never, because we would think that our intelligence would be able to figure it out at every step, because, but actually humility is a surrender of our own perception. And that's what Maharaj did. He surrendered his own perception to, to follow Srila Prabhupada. And so, if you get accused of following blindly, yes, so, there can be questions and there can be gentle sort of, dialogues about things, and, just as decisions are made, and you can write and make your proposals and things like that, absolutely. And that's, no doubt that's welcomed. But at the end of the day, if you decide not to follow an authoritative, instruction, against what Srila Prabhupada would have wanted, then, you're on your own. You're on your own. You have to. That's your choice. That's your decision, and that's you being a separatist ultimately, or else if it's not, then you just have to live with the fact that you're carving a separate path.
It's a very subtle science.
Yeah, it's a subtle science. Yeah. Yes, very.
I was just going to say that Prabhupada always just made it very simple by talking about the gentleman. That the goal is really just to be a perfect gentleman or gentlewoman. And which is, I mean, one thing that we're seeing a lot around the world, but also in this continent, is all this political extremity of extreme political opinions, really. And even just historically, it's like if you look at Europe and what would happen in Europe between the Catholics and the Protestants, and even the Bolshevik Revolution, which was against the church, and the terror in France, which was also against the church, and they were against the king. They had kind of a double whammy in France of totalitarian regime of the monarchy and then the church together. And but you had this wild swing where to the other extreme, where they just killed all the priests. They killed everybody. They were killing 200,000 people a month by the guillotine at one point in France, and that never happened in England. And even though England had all the same conditions that could happen, but they had one very special other condition in England, which really set England apart during all that time running up to the Industrial Revolution, where they had really in England the cult of the gentleman. In other words, it's not that people didn't have political opinions, they did, but they elevated this cult of the gentleman above whatever your religion was or your politics was, and that really prevented there being these wild extremes in England. Because they had a little bit, they had Henry VIII cutting off all his wives' heads, and all this beheading, and they finally just realized that this wasn't the point, there was something better, which was this cult of the gentleman. And so, and even, like Gandhi said, I never could have done a nonviolent movement against the Dutch or the Spanish or the Portuguese or the French or the Germans. We would have just been treated just like we were by the Muslims. They would have just crushed us. And the only reason that the nonviolence movement worked is it was against the British. They had a cult of the gentleman. You could shame them into proper behavior because it was a culture that they elevated above other cultures. And same with the American Revolution. America never should have been an independent country. They had no chance against the British. England was the superpower of all superpowers at the time of the American Revolution. It was only because the British were like gentlemen. They were just like, okay, whatever, America. Okay, all right. And you're going to be so eloquent writing your Declaration of Independence, whatever, all right. Like we never should have won the War of 1812 either, America, ever. We had no chance. Anyway, and but it was the cult of the gentleman that really allowed goodness to happen despite political extremes and despite all this danger in the world, because it is dangerous when people are going insane, chopping off other people's heads and everything. And but the cult of the gentleman can really save you to really realize that there's a higher standard of behavior regardless of what the circumstances are. And anyway, I think I'll put that in very simple terms, which is very important to remember. Because we like to think that the ends justify the means. But if you have to be a perfect gentleman in all circumstances, then the ends can't justify the means. The means have to stand on their own. Only within the cult of the gentleman. Almost all other social paradigms allow you, other than a proper elevation of etiquette very highly, they all allow you to think that the ends justify the means, that you're protecting your children. This is why people go crazy. They think, you're going to pollute my children with your insane doctrine, so I'll kill you, And it's not like people go crazy for no reason. They have good reasons why they're attacking other people. And it's the ends justify the means. And so that stressing of self-control as the cult of the gentleman is very, very powerful. Anyway, which we've seen also even just in mundane history, how powerful it is. Well, it's not like the British were perfect, but overall, they didn't go as insane as a lot of these other cultures. And pay the price for repressing others. I mean, the Islamic Empire completely fell apart. Trying to crush India and Israel. It's the same with the Ottoman Empire.
even Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he considered that, he saw that in the British people. He saw them as their younger brothers, and that he used to call out, make a call to India that we should embrace. This was before some of those atrocities, though, because he was saying, but he could see that the culture there was compatible, that the same value, the value of being a gentleman and having that as a kind of what guided your behaviour. But in the Kali Yuga, everything degenerates. So even that, without spiritual culture, without real spiritual culture, that kind of morality, it can't maintain. It has to be based on spiritual practice. It's a bit like the vision that they have, because I brought up with the whole British thing. It was all based on manners. The whole cultural, my whole culture was good manners, and yeah. Well, the thing is, but yes, but the thing is that, without the spiritual vision, what's the point of having good manners? Because you can't tolerate other people's bad manners. Once you've got good manners, you can't tolerate other people. Yeah, so you have to be able to. It has to go hand in hand. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.